From the Grave I Crawl by Epic Insanity 666, Chapter 18, Rebirth of Hyde. Chains, that's what he felt around himself, the chair barely keeping the chains intact as he fought the voice in his mind, beads of sweat dripping from his being. Jacob Hyde looked at the void of darkness around him, his mind foggy and unfocused. He winced as his mind was assaulted with voices, so many voices calling to him, reaching for him, driving him to a mad grin until all was silent, leaving Jacob Hyde as his veins grew ashen gray as two red orbs appeared in the darkness of the void. Jacob! Hearing his voice called by the one known as the Queen by the voices, he felt two feminine hands lift his chin up to the calmly smiling face of Salem, the mother of Grimm, the scourge of Remnant. Staring at the woman with unfocused eyes, Jacob cleaned his fist in defiance. Scowling at the woman who continued to meddle with his mind, he only made her smirk. Jacob Hyde, descendant of explorer Jekyll Hyde, you hold great promise to me. Get out of my head! Hearing the grunt of resistance of her ploy, Salem smiled once more, peering fully on the entrapped man's lap. She stroked his hair lovingly. Now why would I leave my king all alone? I have chosen you, Jacob, because you are becoming just like me. Inhuman, pulling the man's lips to hers, Jacob felt pain rise from his being as his body changed, shifting and moving his muscles. Jacob's eyes slowly morphed into red orbs that stared into Salem's own, the blank veins under his skin pulsing. What will you have me do, my queen? Smiling sinisterly at his ease, Salem spoke. I have a thought of that team your human superiors are interested in. I want you to capture them, purge them of their humanity, make them my pawns, our pawns. Smiling as the woman faded into his subconscious, Jacob's eyes slowly fell closed before they opened with an inhuman glow as he sat in his quarters, reaching to rub his neck. The sudden contact of his fingers caused his veins to sink under his attire, turning as his room's intercom came on. Lieutenant Hyde, prepare for Alpha 1 capture. Bring the target in alive by any means. Looking forward to a mirror of himself, Jacob watched as the ghostly appearance of Salem draped her arms over his neck, nuzzling his neck with like a feline. He spoke. Of course, sir, letting out a yawn as he sat up from his bed. Vlad reached to his bedside for his shades as the curtain in his room was thrown open by a cheery wolf faunus. Looking to the girl in front of him, Vlad sighed as he sat back down. Just like old times. Looking to the other beds in the guest room, Vlad frowned at them being empty, while Angela moved to fix the main beds, allowing Vlad to sit up on the bedside, showing he wore a vest like a singlet with knee-high shorts, rubbing his face while yawning. Getting up, he looked to his scroll as it pinged off receiving a message. Aurora called before, just so you know. Looking to the blonde wolf faunus, Vlad raised a hand in thanks before looking to his scroll, a small smile resting on his face as he read the message. I'll be visiting you soon, Aurora. Looking up suddenly at hearing a loud commotion downstairs, he heard Lucien yell out, my bad! Smiling with a shake of his head, Vlad stood up, a pair of his dress pants in hand, as he made his way to the second-floor bathroom for a morning shower. Placing his scroll on the bathroom bench with a song playing, Vlad closed the door as he began to strip, revealing 5 claw marks that looked years old on his upper back. Sighing as he closed the curtains, he allowed his eyes to relax in the low lighting as he ran the warm water. Pressing a plan, he stepped under the water calmly. Sitting at the table with a bag of ice on his forehead, Jason and an apologetic Lucien waited as Naruto and Angela cooked breakfast. Naruto using his chakra chains to cook more freely, stunning Angela as he went from just starting to halfway done with the breakfast. Just as Ozansu stepped into the kitchen with Emma in the arms of a woman that looked 26, smiling to Ozansu, she sat down with Lucien, pulling up a chair for the new mother back from the grave, thanks to Thanatos. And speaking of Thanatos, turning to the man in the other room, Jason noticed the man sitting in the living room with Zekromaka snoring the morning day. Thanatos seen carving a pendant-like object. It oddly resembled his hockey mask. Reaching for said object, he had a sad look on his face. Looking up, he saw the ghostly apparition of his ancestors hovering around the kitchen, some female and others hulking behemoths of muscle. Turning to the left, he saw the spirit of his father looking over Thanatos. Blinking at seeing his deceased dad beside the mysterious man, Jason turned away with a frown as he released his grip on the mask, followed by the souls vanishing from his sight, allowing him to look up and take the offered plate of egg and bacon from Angela, the girl blushing with a shy smile that Jason returned. "Thank you. You're welcome." Smiling while admiring her figure as she left, Jason noticed Lucien giving him a knowing smirk, making Jason point at him threateningly. "Not a word until I get the courage." Turning to eat his breakfast, they looked to the stairs to see Vlad walking down with his scroll in hand, the entire group failing to see Thanatos smile as his left hand held a tree of bloodlines. Looking to it, he watched as the name of Aurora and Jackie connecting to Winter Schnee slowly change, with Vlad replacing Jacques' name, making him smile at his chosen change of history. He lowered his hand to look at a calendar, showing it was a Saturday. Looking to Team Outcast as they sat at the table, Osansu turned to the woman who smiled at Lucien, who attempted to make a joke. Sekramak turned to the woman who slept. Thanatos gave him a look of seriousness. "When they escort Miss Ravenna to Atlas and then Vale, keep them safe." Staring at the man he slept, Zakarmak's right hand rose up with a thumbs up. It was this moment Ozanzu stepped into the room, his youthful appearance still present, with his cane slithering behind him. "Excuse me, Miss Ravenna. Doublehead is prepared and ready." Looking to Ozansu, the newly made mother nodded as Team Outcast got ready to move out, Vlad looking the most excited. Watching Zekramak and the team follow after their charge, Thanatos sat back with a bottle of Adlesian whiskey appearing in his right hand. "I'll catch up. You use Henry too much," laughing at hearing Zekramak's voice from outside, with Osansu crossing his arms as Thanatos sighed. "What did you change?" "Oh, nothing. Just ruins a prick's chance of getting third base on first try, and gave Vlad something to look forward to." "And what of Hyde?" The only answer the water deity got was one of silent thought. Only Naruto could get through to his clouded mind. Looking to the bottle in his hand, Thanatos sighed. Crawling away with what little strength he had, a heavily bleeding soldier of Atlas crawled the dirt to escape the gore of a battle behind him. The lieutenant sent with them, deciding the battle free for all, not even showing any care for the loss of human life, as his being became nothing but a demented greed for battle, looking back for a split second before he was torn apart by the hungry jaws of Beowulf, while Jacob stood in the center of human body parts, his entire uniform red with blood, while his head sported two small stubbled horns, his skin a deathly pallor, with his eyes blood red. Clutching his weapon tightly, his free hand held a severed head of the one leading the human squads. Dropping it while slowly inhaling, Jacob looked forward to see Salem standing there as an apparition, a purple jumpsuit on her being. She smiled pleasantly while approaching her king, caressing the left side of his face. She left a bloodied hand print before she vanished, leaving Jacob with the mutated wolfalness unharmed, her claws bloodied like Jacob. "Lieutenant Hyde, report." Hearing the voice in his earpiece, Jacob's eyes returned to their normal standard. Pressing a button, he spoke. "Mission successful. The squad got in my way, sir." Sighing as he shook his head, Colonel Blood looked to Dr. Salilam, who had a wicked smile as he stared at the datapad in his hands. "Doctor, any news on our captured runaway?" Watching the man turn to him, the doctor smiled wider. "She has full control of herself. Her brain waves, they were still fragmented, but she still believes she is Faunus. If we can fix this DNA to Mr. Wolfblood's, we may very yet get a stronger strain of DNA. And of the others." Watching the man look to his scroll with a furrowed brow, his smile turned into a grin. "Same result, except for Mr. Graves." Turning to Dr. Salilam with a furrowed brow, the colonel spoke. "What is the problem?" There is no problem. His blood has proven great promise, and speculates results. Turning to the colonel, the wicked scientist showed the live feed of a lone figure in a cage, looking mostly human, aside from the grim armor on his shoulders and head, looking like they wore a crown that was grown from a skull. This subject, injected with a small dose of Mr. Graves' blood along with grim DNA, has shown increased aggressiveness to the host of the human blood and odd abilities outside of Remnant. Take a look at this. Watching the doctor move his scroll to him, the colonel stared in awe as the video feed showed the subject standing on water. What is this? This is one of the odd abilities the subject has shown occurring, walking on many surfaces, water included, walls, ceilings, anything, even breathing fire and lightning. Are you saying this boy holds power beyond any semblance in Remnant? Watching the doctor as he frowned in worry, he spoke. I'm not sure, but if we are to make a breakthrough, we will need fresh samples from the source. End of chapter 18. From the Grave I Crawl by Epic Insanity 666, chapter 19. Death with Benefits. Sitting idly with an outstretched hand, Thanatos stared at four cards held in the air by blue flames. One card showing Naruto with a mirrored shadow figure with a skull mask over its face, the rigid decorated with all kinds of weaponry. Floating idly behind that one showed a much larger Jason looking down at his family's hockey mask, a machete tightly in his grasp, with a river of blood falling from his hands. Looking to the next two, Thanatos smirked at the sight of Lad sitting on a throne-like chair with a goblet of bright red dripping down like Jason's, his shades pointed out by their own red shade. And lastly, the wild card of Lucian Wolfblood, which showed Lucian howling at the broken moon, and below him mirrored a wolf howl to a full moon. Admiring the manifestation of these four souls he held in his hand, Thanatos looked up suddenly at the sound of footsteps, noticing an amber-orange light reflecting off of a wall. Thanatos heard a voice that only belonged to one mortal god he knew. Meddling with mortal affairs again, I see. Hearing the obvious amusement from the appearance of Apollo, Fuyu Inferno. Fuyu was wondering when the rest of you would take notice. Now, how is little Kami doing? Moving to stash the cards into his coat. A slightly pale arm covered his gauntlets from the night era, with a mix of samurai, was placed on his right shoulder. She is unpleased with how you're meddling with her plans for this world, especially the two children. They chose to be lazy and leave this world to itself. Their fault. Looking to the knight/samurai god, the god of death was a loud sight to the centurion helmet with the back exposed to show the head beneath, allowing the fiery hair to flow freely, with a set of copper eyes staring in amusement. Ah, the god of honor himself, come to personally grace me with his presence. Who do you need brought back this time? Turning to the warrior fully, Thanatos was greeted by an array of hovering swords from many cultures following Fuyu. We've come to retrieve Zekramak. His time in a physical body is drawing to a close once more. He is in need for another host. You're taking him to another shinobi world, aren't you? Who's the host this time? Staring at Fuyu as he began to leave. For the first time since he's known him, Thanatos felt a ting of fear at the cruel smirk the man had. It's a surprise. With that, Fuyu began to leave the god of death in his throne of bones. Well, at least leave someone to help me with this mess. Those two dickheads left me behind. Seeing Fuyu click his fingers, Thanatos blinked as the sound of static came from his left. Turning, he was met with the sight of a samurai/ninja warrior with holographic muscle with music speaker out his body, his face hidden behind a silver mask with three distinct lines running down the mask's cheeks. Staring back, the mask showed a smirk back. Oh dear God! Resting hand on his mask, the lightning speedster chuckled. Long time no see, Thana-Gigi. Stared at the younger god with a deadly look. The god of death sighed in annoyance while looking at an orb, which showed Team Outcast departing from a bullhead, with Vlad stretching with a smile. Letting out an exhale of Atlas's cold, wintry atmosphere, Vlad enjoyed the sight without a care. Ah, sweet home. Boredom. Turning to Lucien beside him, Lebet Faunus raised an eyebrow to Lucien, who was snuggling himself with his fur coat. Jason furtively trying to keep himself and their current charge warm from the cold. Seeing this, Vlad moved to help keep Emma and her new mother warm. Looking to Naruto to ask for help, they were blasted suddenly with an aura of warmth. Blinking at the odd feeling, they turned to see Kurama glowing brightly as he slept around Naruto's shoulder. The blonde, smiling like an idiot. Well, that's one problem done with. Come on, Atlas will have heat generators in the town and cities. Following after Vlad as he carried Emma, Ravana closely following. Stopping with a frown, Naruto narrowed his eyes at sensing an odd, familiar feeling on the continent, something Jason picked up. You alright? Looking to Jason for a second before looking over the distant terrain of snow, he turned and followed calmly, trying to ignore the memory of his time in snow with Team 7. Yeah, just old memories rearing their head on me. Nodding in understanding, Jason walked beside Naruto while patting his back. The first team is always like family, always hard to lose them. They didn't die. Half of them turned their backs on me. The only one to stay by me is my older teacher. I wonder what he's doing right now. Most likely trying to keep himself busy. Turned to Kurama with a shrug. Jason looked to his mask hooked to his right hip before looking to the large city of Atlas ahead. Soldiers in white gear sat up as security. Good, you never know when a Grim will actually get the courage to attack. Keeping an eye on the many soldiers, Vlad and Naruto instantly spotted the different gear these ones had. So we did encounter a separate division, but which one? Walking further through the checkpoint to the city, the four had to jog to catch up with Vlad, who had begun to walk more eagerly, stopping to look every so often before walking onwards. Wonder what's got him so lively. Turned to Naruto as they followed. Emma spoke while Lucien leaned to Naruto. Most likely Aurora. Hearing Lucien speak of the name, Naruto's mind clicked. Wait, isn't she? Vlad! Turning to the voice, the three had to literally jump aside to avoid the literal rocket known as Vlad, who held a woman with snow-white hair. She wore an elegant dress, kept warm by fur tufts of animal fur on her sleeves and collar. Her hair was left long to the point they reached her upper back. Pale skin with a vibrant aura of life. Naruto instantly saw the white smile Vlad had to the knee. Opening his mouth to address the duo, he was silenced by another, more arrogant voice. Aurora, you know your father doesn't like you running off like... Oh, it's you, Mr. Dracula. Turning to the black-haired teen, Naruto and Kurama immediately put him in their possible prank target list. Turning to him with his arms crossed, Naruto looked to see Aurora and Vlad standing up, Aurora blushing awkwardly, while Vlad glared flatly. Hey, Jackass, still snobbish as always? Are you sure you don't mean arrogant? Turned to Naruto with a scoff. Jackass was soon greeted by a growling Kurama, who was held at bay by Naruto scratching his back to ease his annoyance. Easy, Kurama. No need to waste your energy on a cunt. Now see here, Jackass, that's enough. Return to the estate and tell my father I am in good hands. Turning to Aurora with an incredulous look, Jackass went to object, only to be silenced by Emma throwing a small ball of snow at his face, making Aurora snort, with Jackass turning to glare at the little devil who was currently sticking her tongue out at him. I'll be fine. I'm among friends. Now go tell my father to expect an old face to visit. Looking to Aurora with a defeated look, Jackass turned and left, grumbling about animals being where they don't belong, which made Naruto summon a handgun and discreetly aim at Jackass's head until Vlad lowered it. Guys, allow me to introduce you to Aurora's knee, Lucien, and I's old friend. Gesturing to Aurora, the two humans of Team Outcast watched her curtsy with grace. A pleasure to meet you all. Vlad has told me good things of you both, and Lucien, good to see you again. Approaching the smiling wolf, the two shared a short hug. So, this is the Schnee I've heard of. Turning to the voice of Zekramak with weapons raised on instinct, the four groaned as the man grinned with a normal mouth, despite his skin looking near corpse-like. And you are? Smiling normally, now with a bow, Zekramak winked to Vlad. Alan Sorrows, my lady. Leaning down with the Schnee's hand in his own, Vlad had to restrain himself from slapping the god of insanity, who at the moment to kiss the girl's knuckles. Standing back up straight, the five stared at his glowing eyes before he beckoned after Emma and her adopted mother. Come now, young chaps, we have an adventure to explore. Watching the man skip away with looks of awkwardness, Aurora turned to Vlad. Who is he really? You wouldn't believe us if we showed evidence. Turning to the four as Zekermak followed after the mother and daughter, Aurora smiled brightly. Shall we give my father a visit? Lead the way, Mishni. Laughing at Vlad's bright reply, the five followed after Aurora, failing to see a soldier in red-plated armor observing them from the shadows. Turning away the mechanics in his leg armor turning away, the mechanics in his leg armor catapulted him upward with a spring. End of chapter 19.